So I love the topic that we've chosen, the title we've chosen today, Adolescent Grunt.
I love it as well. And I remember when we were thinking about that, we were thinking that there are many adolescents who come in to the session, the therapy session, and when you check in with them and say, how are you doing, what you're going to get is,
Grunt.
Or,
I'm fine.
Or I'm
Dunno.
okay, I don't know.
Yeah.
And sometimes as a therapist, I think it's really hard to be with that in terms of thinking,
What do I do with this?
what am I going to do? And maybe becoming quite anxious about it.
Yeah, because I think you've got 50 minutes with this young person and they don't want to talk to you. So the instant thing is, what am I going to do?
Yes, yes. But I think we can use it to our advantage. But first of all, it's useful to think about maybe just the idea of the brain development and also thinking about polyvagal theory.
Yeah.
But if we think that this is also a child developmental piece, that often adolescents are not really communicating through their verbal language. They are often grunting, they are often speaking very, very short sentences, or they're communicating in a more creative way, in a different way.
Yeah.
So it's a child developmental piece, but also thinking about the brain, and I'm going to go with Paul McLean's triune brain.
Yeah.
I know it's a very, very simple concept and idea, but it's helpful for us when we're discussing this topic.
Yeah.
That if we think that there are three levels, and a very simplistic idea, we've got the lower brain, which is the reptilian, which is where sort of fight, flight is situated, and
bodily functions.
And bodily functions, survival, breathing, respiration, those sorts of things. Then we've got the middle bit, which is the limbic area, which is where creativity, feelings are situated.
Making sense of emotions, implicit memory, that's all held there.
Yes, and things like expletives and grunts. Swearing, that we sometimes can see in therapy, but also the grunts. And then that higher brain function, that third bit, which is the newest part of the brain, which is the pre-cortex, the thinking, the cognitive part of the brain. So we can use that to our advantage if we think the grunts are in the middle area and its creativity and its feelings are situated there. But from a polyvagal perspective, we might just talk a little bit about that.
Well, I think from a polyvagal perspective, what we've got to think about is we know that this sort of lack of verbal communication is coming from an emotional place, but actually where is it coming from a states place in the body? So just by sort of tuning in and getting a sense from the person that you're with, picking up on body language and how they're sort of positioning themselves, whether they've got lots of energy or lower energy, so whether they're mobilised or immobilised, is going to have an effect on, also going to have an effect on what you do next or what you do with this. But fundamentally what we're saying is that the grunts and the sort of very, very short sentences, it's all communication, it's just not in language. So when this happens, we just have to take a minute and just think, I'm not expecting to have a whole sort of full sentences about how I am. They're telling me how they are right now.
Yes, and I think also that they're telling us from a body perspective and also a brain perspective. And if we can marry those up, that's going to give us rich information of what we do in the session. And there are a couple of examples that we want to give today, and I think if you perhaps communicate your example that you were sharing with me the other day.
Yeah, sure. So I was just thinking about this young person who came to see me. It was actually a first session, and this she was a girl, and she'd been brought because it was kind of last chance. She'd very unwillingly come to see me. And as she came in, hoodie up, no communication other than grunts. And I could feel myself getting quite worried about this because I thought, I've got one chance here and I don't want to blow it. So it just felt really important to me that I told her what was going on for me, that I was feeling quite nervous, that I really wanted to connect and support her in the session, but I had all these different feelings going on. And after a few seconds, the hoodie came down, and she sort of was able to offer me eye contact, and we went on from there. So just by noticing, this was very much noticing what was going on in her body and what was going on in mine, I was able to use that to open up the conversation.
And I'm thinking that you were being authentic.
authentic, curious, so being very interested in what was happening in the space between us.
Yes.
Because I think there's one thing we do know with young people is that they have the most brilliant ability to read, pick up on signals from others. So yeah.
And I have an example of a young person that I worked with for quite a while.
Yeah.
So it was an established long-term therapeutic relationship. And he would always come in the initial phase of therapy, if you like.
Yeah.
And when I would check in with him, he would always say, I'm okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay.
Mm-hmm.
And, sort of after about 12, 13 sessions, I thought, you know what, I'm going to be a little bit playful with him about this. And so what it became was when he came into the session, I would say to him, how are you today? But I'm wondering if you can tell me something different than I'm okay, because I think that's what you were going to tell me. And what we did over a period of time was that he started to develop a language of feelings which were connected to his thoughts and also his body.
Yeah.
And he was able to develop the idea as well of I'm okay, for him was perhaps situated here, so I use my hand quite a bit with him, and I'm not okay is situated here, and actually I'm brilliant
is at the top.
Yeah. And what I would say for me, it was really about, unlike your client, you needed to be curious with her. For my client, I needed to be more playful.
Yeah.
And through that playful process, I was actually able to be more creative with him.
Yeah.
In terms of him just coming up with different words and using my hands. And he was able to be more creative in his responses as well. Yeah. And that worked really, really well for him.
Yeah. So I think what we're kind of saying is that actually, for those of us that do work with adolescents and young people, expect it, that this is actually a developmental phase and they've shown up and they're there. And whilst you're not being given language to work with, you are being given a lot of other communication.
Yes.
And if you just take a moment to think about where they're at, then you respond to them appropriately. Be playful, be curious, and just be authentic.
Yeah. See them as cues and clues.
Exactly.
And that's going to help you with your work with that young person.